You ever see those nature documentaries where like, all those animals are just gathered at a watering hole
Right.
and they have no idea that like a predator's waiting to attack?
It's such a classic scene, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's all about like exploiting trust and predictability.
Exactly.
That's exactly what we're diving into today.
Oh, cool.
Watering hole attacks.
Okay.
And these cyber attacks, they use the same principle, but in the digital world.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So we're going to uncover how they work, look at some real-world examples that'll make you think twice about the websites you visit.
Oh, fun.
And then, of course, we'll talk about how to protect yourself.
Love it.
So can you break down exactly what a watering hole attack is and like how it unfolds?
Okay, so imagine a hacker wants to target a specific company, right? Let's say a law firm.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of attacking the firm directly, they're going to figure out what websites the employees frequently visit.
Okay.
So maybe like a popular legal forum or a news site specializing in legal updates.
So they're going after the low-hanging fruit, the places people feel safe?
Yeah, basically they're going to infect the website with malicious code just lying in wait.
Ugh, sneaky.
And then when an unsuspecting employee visits the site, bam, the code springs into action, potentially installing malware or stealing sensitive information.
That's so sneaky.
Yeah.
So how do they actually infect the website in the first place?
Yeah.
Are we talking like super complex hacking wizardry?
It does require technical skill,
Okay.
but the methods themselves can be surprisingly common.
Really?
Yeah. So one technique is called SQL injection.
Okay.
Think of a website's database as a vault containing valuable information.
Mhm.
SQL injection is like finding a hidden crack in that vault door,
Oh.
allowing attackers to slip in malicious code and potentially steal or manipulate data.
So they're basically hijacking the website from the inside.
Exactly. Another method is malicious scripting.
Okay.
So websites are built with code, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes there are vulnerabilities within that code.
Mhm.
Attackers can inject malicious scripts, often written in JavaScript.
Okay. And these scripts run when someone visits the site.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And these scripts can do all sorts of nasty things, from redirecting users to dangerous sites to stealing their login credentials.
So even just browsing a seemingly harmless website could put you at risk.
He could.
Are there other methods that they use besides this too?
Yeah, there are a few others.
Okay.
One is called browser exploits.
Browser exploits.
Yeah. So think of your web browser, Chrome, Firefox, Safari,
Right. Yeah.
as the gateway to the internet.
Okay.
Attackers can exploit vulnerabilities in these browsers,
Okay.
essentially finding loopholes in the gateway
Right.
to compromise security and potentially take control of your entire device.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
So it's not just the website itself that's at risk, but the tools we use to access it.
Exactly. And then there are third-party plugins.
Okay.
Those little add-ons that
Yeah.
websites use to add extra functionality.
Yeah.
The problem is some of these plugins might not be as secure as the website itself.
Creating another potential entry point for attackers.
That's a good reminder to be careful about what we install and keep everything updated.
For sure.
So we've covered SQL injection, malicious scripting, browser exploits, and third-party plugins. Is there anything else lurking in this digital watering hole?
One more we should mention is DNS spoofing.
Okay.
DNS is like the internet's phone book translating website names into numerical IP addresses that computers understand.
Okay.
With DNS, spoofing attackers can trick your computer into thinking it's visiting a legitimate site when it's actually being redirected to a fake one designed to steal your information.
So it's like being led to a mirage in the digital desert. You think you're reaching a safe haven, but it's all a trick.
Exactly. And the scariest part is these fake websites can look incredibly convincing,
Oh, no.
making it even harder to spot the danger.
Okay, this is all getting a bit unsettling. Are there any real-world examples of these watering hole attacks that you can share? Because right now, it all feels a bit hypothetical, but I'm guessing that's not the case.
You're right. Watering hole attacks have been used in some high-profile cases. One chilling example is a campaign called Evil Bamboo,
Evil Bamboo.
which specifically targeted individuals from Tibet, Uyghur, and Taiwan.
Wow.
What's interesting about this campaign is that they took a slow and steady approach.
Really?
Yeah.
So they weren't going for like a quick smash and grab, but rather a more subtle infiltration.
Exactly. They meticulously created fake websites and social media profiles and strategically joined online communities to build trust and relationships.
So they were playing the long game, essentially becoming part of the community before striking.
Precisely. And once they had established that trust, They deployed spyware to steal sensitive information from their unsuspecting victims.
Oh, wow.
It's a prime example of how attackers can exploit our natural tendency to trust those within our social circles.
Okay, that is genuinely frightening.
Huh.
Are there other examples that highlight just how dangerous these attacks can be?
Absolutely. Another example is Bootloader.
Bootloader.
Now, this one specifically targeted law firms and individuals searching for legal information online.
So they were preying on people's need for specific information.
Exactly. They would manipulate search results.
Oh, wow.
So when someone searched for, say, free legal documents,
Right.
they'd see a link that seemed legitimate but actually led to a malicious website designed to infect their computer with malware.
It's a scary thought that even something as simple as searching for information online could expose you to these attacks.
Well, it's true.
You mentioned Bootloader and Evil Bamboo. Any other examples?
There's also a case involving predator spyware
Predator spy.
used in Madagascar ahead of a presidential election.
Really?
What made this attack so audacious was that they directly injected links to download the spyware into legitimate news articles on popular blogs.
Wait, so even reading the news wasn't safe?
Yeah, that's alarming.
It shows just how brazen these attackers can be, exploiting our trust in established news sources. And finally, we have the case of APTTA 423.
APTTA 423.
A group believed to be operating out of China.
They targeted Australian organizations and offshore energy companies using a combination of phishing emails and malicious websites that promoted industry-specific content.
So they were tailoring their attacks to specific industries, making them even more convincing.
Exactly. By disguising their malicious links as industry reports or news articles, they increase the likelihood of their targets taking the bait.
It seems like these examples are all about targeting specific types of people or industries. Is that typical of watering hole attacks?
Yes, watering hole attacks are often very targeted. Some of the most common targets include government institutions and agencies, critical infrastructure sectors like energy and utilities,
Okay.
legal and financial services, and technology and research institutions.
Yeah, I can definitely see why those industries would be so attractive to attackers. But I have a question. Why go through all the trouble of setting up a watering hole attack? Wouldn't it be easier to just send out a bunch of phishing emails or try to hack into an organization directly? What's the advantage?
That's a great question. The beauty of a watering hole attack from the attacker's perspective is its indirect approach.
Okay.
Instead of directly targeting an organization which can raise red flags and trigger defenses, they compromise a trusted website that their victims are likely to visit anyway.
So it's all about stealth and flying under the radar.
Precisely. It's harder to detect because the initial website compromise might not even be noticed. And since they're not attacking the organization directly, it can be much harder to trace the attack back to its source.
This is starting to feel like a digital spy thriller. But in all seriousness, this all sounds pretty daunting. What can we actually do to protect ourselves in this digital watering hole landscape? Any tips from the expert?
Absolutely. First and foremost, real-time monitoring is crucial.
Okay.
You need systems in place that can detect suspicious activity on your networks and individual devices.
So we're talking about being able to spot unusual behavior that might indicate an attack.
Exactly. And this is where tools like intrusion detection systems, or IDS, come into play. They act like security cameras for your network, constantly monitoring for suspicious traffic patterns that could indicate a watering hole attack.
So it's like having a vigilant guard watching over your digital borders.
You could say that. Another crucial aspect is patch management.
Okay.
Keeping all your software updated from your operating system to your web browser and all those third-party plugins
Right.
is one of the simplest yet most effective ways to prevent attackers from exploiting known vulnerabilities.
Okay, so no more ignoring those update notifications.
Yeah.
I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes. What else can we do?
Access controls and privilege management are also essential. The principle here is to limit user access to only what they absolutely need to do their jobs.
Right.
This way, even if an attacker manages to compromise one account, they won't have access to the entire system.
So it's all about minimizing the potential damage.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget about backup and disaster recovery.
Right.
Regular automated backups are your safety net. If the worst happens and you do get hit by an attack, having robust backups ensures that you can restore your data and get back up and running quickly.
And that's where a company like ours can really help. We offer state-of-the-art backup and disaster recovery solutions that can help protect your data from these types of threats. In fact, one of the things we specialize in is something called immutable backups.
Immutable backups are fantastic because they can't be altered or deleted even by an attacker who gains access to your systems. It's like having a fortress for your data that can't be breached.
Exactly. So we've covered real-time monitoring, patch management, access controls, and backups.
Hmm.
What other tools or technologies are out there that can specifically help detect and prevent watering hole attacks?
Well, in addition to intrusion detection systems, we have endpoint protection solutions, which use real-time threat detection and machine learning to identify and stop malicious activity on individual devices.
So it's like having a bodyguard for each of your computers.
That's a great way to put it. And then there are network monitoring tools that provide a deeper level of analysis of your network traffic, helping to spot anomalies that could indicate a watering hole attack in progress.
It sounds like we need a whole arsenal of tools to stay safe.
Well, a layered security approach is always the best strategy. Think of it like building a castle. You wouldn't just rely on one wall to protect you.
Right.
You'd have multiple layers of defense walls, moats guards, and so on. Cybersecurity is the same.
That's a great analogy. So what other layers should we be thinking about?
We have web application firewalls, or WWAFs, which act like a shield for your websites, filtering out malicious requests and preventing them from reaching your servers. Then there are threat intelligence platforms, which constantly gather information about the latest threats and vulnerabilities, allowing you to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's like having a global network of spies constantly feeding you intel on the latest enemy tactics.
Exactly. And finally, secure DNS services can help block access to known malicious websites, preventing you from stumbling into a watering hole in the first place.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, from how these attacks work to the tools and techniques we can use to defend ourselves. But before we wrap up, I'm curious to get your thoughts on emerging trends. With technology evolving so quickly, is there anything on the horizon that worries you?
That's a great question. One trend that keeps me up at night is polymorphic code execution.
Polymorphic what now?
Basically, it means that attackers are constantly changing their code to make it harder for security software to detect. It's like they're wearing a different disguise every time they launch an attack.
That's sneaky. Anything else we should be aware of?
Another big concern is the exploitation of zero-day vulnerabilities.
Zero-day vulnerability.
These are vulnerabilities that are unknown to the software developers. So there's no patch available to fix them. It's like being attacked with a weapon you didn't even know existed.
Okay, that's definitely unsettling. Any other tricks up their digital sleeves?
We're also seeing an increase in steganography, which is the art of hiding malicious code within seemingly harmless files like images or documents. It's like smuggling contraband in plain sight.
That's like something straight out of a spy movie. I can't help but wonder if attackers are getting more creative with their URLs as well.
You're on the right track. Dynamic URL generation is another growing trend. Attackers create unique, time-sensitive URLs that bypass security measures because they look different every time. So a link that was safe yesterday might lead you into a trap today.
Wow, so it's like playing a game of digital whack-a-mole. You never know where the next threat is going to pop up.
And to make matters worse, attackers are getting better at hiding their command and control communication, making it harder to track their activities and take them down.
This is all pretty daunting.
Yeah.
Are there any new security measures or technologies on the horizon that can help us keep up with these evolving threats?
Absolutely. There are some promising advancements that offer hope in this ever-evolving battle. One approach that's gaining traction is on-demand sandboxing.
On-demand sandboxing.
Yeah.
So it's like having a virtual lab where you can test potentially dangerous files without risking your actual systems.
Exactly. Sandboxing allows you to isolate suspicious files and URLs in a safe environment, essentially detonating a potential bomb in a controlled setting.
That sounds incredibly useful. What else is out there?
We're also seeing more sophisticated AI-driven sandbox testing,
Right.
where artificial intelligence is used to speed up and improve malware analysis. It's like having a superpower detective working around the clock to identify and neutralize threats.
So AI can help us fight back against AI-powered attacks. That's reassuring. What else should we be keeping an eye on?
Continuous threat intelligence integration is also crucial. This means constantly updating your security systems with the latest information about threats and vulnerabilities, making sure you're always one step ahead of the bad guys.
So it's like having a direct line to the cybersecurity front lines.
Exactly. You need that constant stream of intelligence to stay informed and adapt your defenses as needed. And speaking of adapting, user behavior analytics, or UBA, is another important tool in our arsenal. It analyzes user activity to spot anomalies that might indicate a compromise.
Okay.
Like someone logging in from an unusual location or accessing files they don't normally need.
So it's like having a security guard who knows your habits and can spot when something is out of place.
That's a great analogy. And finally, I can't stress enough the importance of collaborative defense strategies.
Right.
Sharing information and working together as a community is essential in the fight against cyber threats.
So it's like the old saying, two heads are better than one, but on a global scale.
Exactly. The more we share our knowledge and resources, the stronger we become as a collective force against these cyber criminals.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. I'm already like mentally reviewing my own online habits and security practices.
I feel that.
But before we like get too carried away with all the doom and gloom,
Right.
I want to shift gears and talk about solutions. We've touched on some tools and strategies, but are there any silver bullet solutions out there? Or is it more about like a multifaceted approach?
You hit the nail on the head. There's no magic wand when it comes to cybersecurity.
Right.
It's all about building a layered defense.
So it's about having multiple lines of defense in case one fails.
Exactly. Think of it like a medieval castle. You've got your outer walls, your moats, your archers, and your inner keep. Each layer provides an additional level of protection. In the digital world, this means combining preventative measures, detection capabilities, and response strategies.
Okay, I like that analogy. So we're not just trying to prevent attacks, but also preparing for the possibility that something might slip through the cracks.
Precisely. You need to be able to detect an attack quickly if it does happen,
Right.
and then have a plan in place to respond effectively and minimize the damage.
That makes sense. So if we think about those layers, what are some of the key components we need to have in place?
Well, we've already talked about some of the foundational elements like real-time monitoring, patch management, access controls, and backups. But there are other tools and strategies that can add even more layers of protection.
Like what? Give us the inside scoop.
One technology I'm particularly excited about is on-demand sandboxing.
On-demand sandboxing.
It's essentially a virtual environment where you can safely analyze suspicious files and URLs without risking your actual systems.
So it's like having a digital quarantine zone where you can detonate potential threats without causing any real damage.
That's a great way to put it. Sandboxing allows you to see exactly what a file or URL does before it's allowed to interact with your real systems, giving you a chance to identify and neutralize threats before they can cause harm.
That sounds incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
What else is out there on the cutting edge of cybersecurity?
We're also seeing major advancements in AI-driven sandbox testing.
Okay.
This involves using artificial intelligence to automate and accelerate the process of analyzing potential threats.
So instead of relying solely on human analysts, AI can help sift through the massive amounts of data and identify malicious patterns more efficiently.
Exactly. AI can analyze code behavior and other characteristics to spot telltale signs of malicious intent, helping security teams stay ahead of the ever-evolving threat landscape.
That's reassuring, especially considering how sophisticated these attacks are becoming.
Yeah.
Are there any other emerging technologies or strategies that you think are particularly promising?
One area that's really gaining momentum is continuous threat intelligence integration.
Okay.
This involves constantly feeding your security systems with the latest information about emerging threats, vulnerabilities, and attacker tactics.
So it's like having a direct line to the cybersecurity front lines, keeping your defenses updated with real-time intelligence.
Exactly. The threat landscape is constantly changing, so it's not enough to just set up your defenses and forget about them. You need to be proactive and constantly adapt to stay ahead of the curve.
That makes perfect sense. Are there any other tools or strategies that organizations should be considering as part of their layered defense approach?
Absolutely. User behavior analytics, or UBA, is another valuable tool. It focuses on analyzing user activity to detect anomalies that might indicate a compromise.
So instead of just looking for known malware signatures, UBA looks for unusual patterns of behavior that might suggest something is amiss.
Precisely. For example, if an employee suddenly starts accessing files they've never touched before, or if they're logging in from a different country, UBA can flag that as potentially suspicious activity, allowing security teams to investigate further.
That's a really clever approach. It's like having a digital detective who knows your habits and can spot when something is out of place.
Exactly. And the beauty of UBA is that it can help detect threats that might bypass traditional security measures like insider threats or attacks that use legitimate credentials.
That's fascinating. Are there any other tools or strategies we should be thinking about?
We've touched on a lot of great technologies, but we can't overlook the human element. Collaboration and information sharing are absolutely crucial in the fight against cyber threats.
So it's not just about having the latest and greatest tools, but also about working together as a community.
Exactly. Cybersecurity is not a solo sport. Attackers are constantly sharing information and collaborating with each other, so we need to do the same.
That makes perfect sense. So it's about breaking down silos and fostering a culture of information sharing within organizations and across industries.
Absolutely. The more we share our knowledge, experiences, and best practices, the stronger we become as a collective force against these cyber criminals.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening conversation. It's clear that cybersecurity is a complex and constantly evolving field, but I feel like I have a much better grasp of the challenges and the solutions now.
I'm glad to hear that knowledge is power, and the more we understand about these threats, the better equipped we are to defend ourselves.
Absolutely. And speaking of knowledge and resources, I want to remind our listeners that if they're looking for more information on how to protect their data from these types of threats, or if they're interested in learning more about their robust backup and disaster recovery solutions that we offer, they can visit our website at www.stonefly.com.
Great.
You can also reach out to our team directly at sales@stonefly.com. We're always happy to answer any questions and help you navigate the complex world of cybersecurity. But before we wrap up, I have one final question. Given everything we've discussed today, what's your biggest piece of advice for individuals and organizations who want to stay safe in this increasingly dangerous digital landscape?
That's a great question. If I had to boil it down to one piece of advice, it would be this: never underestimate the power of vigilance.
Vigilance, huh? So it's not just about setting up your defenses and hoping for the best, but rather constantly staying alert and adapting to the evolving threat landscape.
Exactly. Stay informed, stay curious, and never assume that you're immune to these attacks. Cybersecurity is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
That's a powerful message, and I think it's a perfect note to end on.
Right.
Well said. I think that's a great takeaway for all of us. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and never let your guard down when it comes to cybersecurity.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to go it alone. There are resources available to help you stay ahead of these threats, whether it's partnering with a cybersecurity expert or simply staying up to date on the latest news and best practices.
That's a great point. We often feel like we're in this fight by ourselves, but there's a whole community of experts and resources out there to support us. For our listeners who want to delve deeper into this topic or explore robust data protection solutions, we encourage you to visit our website at www.stonefly.com.
Yeah, for sure.
You can also reach out to our team directly at sales@stonefly.com. We're always happy to answer any questions and help you navigate this complex world of cybersecurity.
Awesome.
And don't hesitate to connect with other professionals in your industry.
Right.
Share your experiences, learn from each other, and work together to create a stronger, more resilient digital ecosystem.
I love that.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility. We all have a role to play in protecting ourselves and each other.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the world of watering hole attacks. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you found this episode informative and empowering. Remember, knowledge is your best defense. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and stay safe out there in the digital wild.